Hello, welcome to Test Breath Dojo's series on the GMAT. In particular, this is focused on GMAT verbal and on sentence correction. Today's focus is going to be on a number of different types of modifiers, specifically that, which, and ing modifiers. This is a very commonly tested issue on the exam for sentence correction. It's essential that you understand the rules around these types of modifiers, and more importantly, how they serve the meaning that the author is trying to convey. So it is it's definitely worth your time to really spend time understanding what these things do and what they don't do. And so I've got a couple of examples here that will represent some of the different nuances. So in example 1, we have a sentence about Warren Buffett's letters to his shareholders. And as always, if you want, go ahead and pause the video, read the question. It's always step 1. Try to grasp the meaning the author's trying to convey, and then scan the answer choices. And what you're trying to do is to identify the decision points. Most of these hard questions have 2 decision points. And literally all you're trying to do is scan the answer choices, identify what looks different, and then figure out what the testable topic is, which ones get it right, and you can usually cross off 2 or 3 based on one of the decision points. If you do that, you're already well ahead of the game, and you've just limited your available options to 2 or 3. And if you extrapolate that out to the whole exam, if you're on some of the really hard ones, guessing even out of 2 or 3, your likelihood of getting some of the really hard ones right and unlocking those super scores goes way up. So, it's a good system, and one that you want to just be very comfortable and well rehearsed in terms of executing on. So the first modifier we have here is in the non-underlined portion of the sentence, which is this that modifier. As we know, a that modifier essentially takes items that are part of a larger population, in this case Warren Buffett's letters to his shareholders, and it restricts that larger population to a subset of it. So the sentence is not about Warren Buffett's letters to his shareholders, it's about the subset of those letters that were published in his book. So if we scan the answer choices, we can see right off the bat that one of our decision points has to do with this word here, outnumber, and it is presented a number of different ways. So we can see, depending on the meaning and usage, this is going to have a different impact, and we need to eliminate some of our choices based on this. There's also another one here, which is the modifier having to do with the period over which the letters were written. So in choice A, we have subject, Warren Buffett's letters to his shareholders that were published in his book, and then we have our main verb, were written, and then over a period beginning a few years after Buffett's founding of Berkshire Hathaway. So in this construction, we have an ing modifier, outnumbering, his letters published anywhere else. And so just on a first glance, this one looks like it's at least worth further investigation. So we're going to leave this one for now and come back to it. In B, we have a very similar construction, but it's not outnumbering. It's not an ing modifier. It's outnumber. And this one is clearly wrong, and the reason is we have our subject, the letters that were published in his book were written over a period of time, over a period that begins. So this is a full independent clause, and we can't just have a verb here, outnumber, introducing a modifier. That does not work. So this should be immediately wrong just based on 1 or 2 reads. And understanding some of the basics of grammar. So we're going to kill this one. In C, and so C, D, and E, we have this construction. The letters, and there's a modifier here both constructions written this way, this modifier modifies the letters that were published in the book. This is actually fine. Both of these constructions modify the preceding noun. So all of, at least in this context, these could all be reasonable. What we're actually going to see here is Warren Buffett's letters to his shareholders that were published in his book. So that's our subject, and then we have a modifier, which were written. It's providing more information about the preceding noun. But the issue here is the modifier doesn't end. It goes to the end of the sentence. So this construction in C actually has no main verb, and so it's a fragment. So which were written over a period beginning and that ends shortly before Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting and outnumbering. So that's wrong. That's a fragment. Book in D, which were written over a period beginning and outnumber. Again, it's just one long modifier in this construction, so no main verb, does not work. So then we're down to A and E, and this is why I left A and said we'll come back to it. But if you see in E, we have the same construction with which modifies the preceding noun, which were written, and then we have outnumber. So in this context, outnumber serves as our main verb, and that's okay. So that would work. And the modifier works. At least there's no big violation of a grammar rule here. So this one comes down to a bit more subtlety and a bit more understanding of the meaning that the author is trying to convey. And so there's something really important to keep in mind about an ing modifier, which is there's this notion of it is something that is occurring contemporaneously or at the same time as the action of the preceding clause. And so what is doing outnumbering? It is the letters that are doing the outnumbering, but in this construction, it modifies the action of the preceding clause, so it's letters to his shareholders that were published in his book were written. So outnumbering actually describes were written here, and that is nonsensical. Also, if you think about the outnumbering taking place at the same time as the were written, that doesn't really make sense. That construction certainly doesn't best convey the author's intended meaning, and so that is why A is actually wrong. However, E, book, which were written, so we have this modifier outnumber. So that makes sense. The idea that the outnumber is present tense, it's stating a fact that the letters published in the book at this moment outnumber the letters published anywhere else. That works. That makes sense. That's elegantly, concisely conveying the author's meaning, and thus, based on our understanding of meaning and exactly what modifiers do, we're able to converge to the correct answer. So example 2, according to researchers who monitored its trajectory, an expanding group of meteorites diverted by the moon's gravitational pull recently catalyzed a significant disturbance in the magnetic field that encircles Earth, which illuminated the night sky and also possibly destroyed. So, we can see here one of our decision points right off the bat is this notion of what opens this sentence. We have a modifier, an ing modifier that opens the sentence, and then we go into our subject. And so there's kind of a cool trick here, kind of a cool little thing. We can actually, I always feel like these initial modifiers are always free points because these have to modify the opening of the sentence. It has to modify the subject. And so, and also here you have the added element of this this pronoun. And so what are the researchers researching, and what the trajectory of what object or objects are they monitoring? And so they're monitoring the trajectory of an expanding group of meteorites. And so this is the trajectory of what this ing modifier is intended to modify, if you grasp the author's intended meaning. So right off the bat, they're not monitoring the trajectory of this significant disturbance, and so the its is also not in reference to this significant disturbance. So based on actually two reasons here, we know right off the bat that we can eliminate D and E. And then, so now, okay, like I mentioned earlier, we've now reduced the population of potential correct answers to 3, and we're already in much better shape. So, which eliminated the... So, what is this modifier in these constructions modifying? It's the significant disturbance. So, that's okay. We can have the preceding noun, we can have a prepositional phrase in between a significant disturbance, and then in the magnetic field. That's okay. So it doesn't, the fact that it doesn't have to, the noun doesn't have to be right next to the noun, to the comma here. So they don't have to physically be literally right next to each other. There can be a prepositional phrase in between. Just keep that in mind for your which modifiers. It's super important to remember. But we have which illuminated the night sky and also possibly destroying. These are not parallel. So that is why A is wrong. In B, we have and it illuminated the night sky and also possibly destroyed. So these are parallel, the illuminated and destroyed, but what is the it in reference to? So is it the expanding group of meteorites? Is it the significant disturbance? So that's one issue, and then this one also has this: a group of meteorites diverted by the moon's gravitational pull was what recently. That's a bit awkward. That should be a big red flag, so that one's wrong. So then finally we have an expanding group of meteorites diverted by the moon's gravitational pull recently catalyzed. That is the type of language preferred by the GMAT, so that works. Illuminating and possibly destroying are in parallel, so that's elegant, concise, that's exactly in the language of the GMAT, so we like that. And also, there's this element of contemporaneous occurrence. So, was what recently catalyzed a significant disturbance in the magnetic field that encircles Earth? Did the illumination and the destroying happen at the same time? 100% yes. So, in terms of selecting the answer that most elegantly and accurately expresses the idea that the author intends, these are perfect. So there is an element. It's not always going to be some like glaring grammatical issue that you pick the correct answer on. It's going to be a collective framework of different little things. So does it matter that something is the best, most elegant expression of an idea? 100% yes. You should factor that into your decision making. And so we have our answer here. So we have our system, read the words, what's the intended meaning, scan for the decision points. Check for parallelism, understand, does the parallelism serve the intended meaning? So do verb tense have to be in the same tense to be parallel? No. There could be issues where it better serves the meaning for them not to be in the same tense. So just keep that in mind. Always balance the grammatical rules with intended meaning. Very important to keep this notion of contemporaneous action in mind when you're looking at ing modifiers. Also remember they modify the action of the prior clause. And so, understand what the different modifiers do. That which ing, that will serve you well. And good luck on your exam. Please check out testprepdojo.com. A lot of free content, free Q banks, all that. And look forward to seeing you on my next video.